Skinwalkers, Wendigos, evil demonic shapeshifters. I mean, just watch these clips. Oh, frick!
What the frick? Dude, that was a skinwalker. What?
Buddy! Just cruisers, man!
These are creatures and witches of Native American folklore, and the history behind them is interesting, and the stories of them are absolutely terrifying. They exist deep in the woods, far from civilization, watching, eager to torment the unfortunate people who cross there. As the legend goes, you shouldn't even utter their names. And today, we're breaking it all down. That's right, we'll be explaining what a skinwalker and a Wendigo actually is, where they originate, some of the alleged video of them, and some of the most horrific and terrifying stories of these disturbing creatures. It's Halloween. What better way to get into the spirit than chilling in the tent, listen to some stories. So sit back, relax if you can, and welcome to camp. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to camp. This is Tent Talks. This is the show where I explain the most fascinating, interesting, and morbid stories from around the world and across the internet to my dumbest friends. Today, as you can see, I have no dumb friends. We've scared away Miles. He won't step foot in this tent. He's terrified. You guys have absolutely done a number on him. But that's fine. You know what? I guess it'll just be us. And in the spirit of Halloween, it is October, which I've been getting a lot of shit, by the way. A lot of people have been commenting saying, oh, you guys bank episodes, you hold them for too long. Yeah, okay, I'm a little busy. I just had a kid. We're on the road, we're touring, we're doing stuff, okay? I got things to do. I can't always record every week, all the time, bringing you guys the best content possible, okay? It's hard. So sometimes you got to bank stuff for 6 to 12 months. But this episode, we're recording this November 15th in the future. So if that hopefully makes up for all the episodes that we banked, you're welcome, okay? Today, we're just going to get spooky, all right? How about that? We're just going to have fun. Just kind of loosen up. Just do something kind of just silly, you know? It's not always got to be so factual. You know, you guys tune into this show for the facts, for the hardcore truth that I'm always bringing. The stuff that I research on Wikipedia an hour before. That's what people are here for, okay? My scholarly expertise. But today, it's just going to be fun. There's going to be no fact-checking, just spooky stories, just getting the spirit of Halloween. Just you and I, just connected, just having a vibe, and learning about the Wendigo and the Skinwalker. Now, I've obviously heard of Skinwalker Ranch. This is like the first kind of, my first kind of touch point with the Skinwalker. I didn't know what it was. I know, obviously, this ranch has now just become like a catch-all term for high strangeness, supernatural events, yada, yada. But a skinwalker is a real thing. Now, there's a difference, okay? I didn't know this between the Wendigo and the Skinwalker. According to ChatGPT, which, you know, never wrong. According to ChatGPT, the Wendigo is rooted in Algonquin mythology. So this is specifically a native tribe, the Algonquins. This is in the northern United States and Canada. And basically, a Wendigo, for lack of a better term, can be a spirit that possesses the individual who chooses to resort to cannibalism. That's right. So if a person is tempted to just munch on a leg of his homie, all of a sudden the Wendigo is going to come in, pop into his ass, and take over his spirit. And they look a little creepy. So after they get possessed by the Wendigo, their whole essence changes. The Wendigo sort of embodies this insatiable hunger. The hunger for human flesh. The tale of transformation kind of reflects the consequences of giving in times of famine, where starvation can drive individuals to break that main taboo. Don't eat your neighbor. That's like rule number 1, according to the Algonquins. Don't munch on your homie. And if you do it, the Wendigo is going to possess you. And this Wendigo is creepy. It's disgusting. It's basically described as being like this emaciated humanoid figure thing that has like, you know, grayish skin that's, you know, stretched over its bones, like to symbolize the endless hunger. And here's like a picture of it. You can kind of get an idea of different depictions. And again, this exists within native lore. And again, a lot of people say if you're not native, you shouldn't talk about these things. And I understand that. Okay, I'm not native. I mean, I'm native to somewhere. Probably. French Canada. I guess France. I'm a native. Technically because French Canadians came from France, so I'm probably native to France. So I am a native, but this is not a part of my native history. So again, I'm not professing to be some sort of expert arbiter on the topic. Okay, this is just what I've read. This is just kind of the research that I've done, and just to get a little spooky, just to read some of the stories. We got some banger Wendigo and Skinwalker stories. But again, let me just explain sort of what this thing looks like. It is gaunt. It is the pure embodiment of greed, starvation, endless hunger. And no matter how much it eats, it's still hungry. People describe it as being, 15 feet tall, skeletal, hulking. Looks like Rick Scott. That's what a lot of people have said. Looks like the former senator of Florida. I think he was a senator. Something of Florida. Rick Scott. That's basically that's a Wendigo. Apparently, you're not even supposed to say the name. Just by saying the name, you sort of bring up kind of the spirit itself. You can invite it into your life. I probably shouldn't be saying it. But if you say it in the wintertime, apparently the winter is the only time you can kind of talk about it. And it's hard to get any native folks to discuss it at length. That's why there's not that many, official stories. Some people, from Res and different native tribes have talked about it, but it's difficult to talk about with people that are not native. And even to talk about it with people that are in your family in general, because again, by talking about it, you give energy to the spirit is sort of the tradition. There's a fear that by talking about it, you're going to invite it into your life. Just saying. It's like Voldemort, I guess. It's like talking about like Chipotle and then all of a sudden it pops up on your phone. It's kind of like that. Like you talk about something, you get an ad for it. That's basically the Wendigo. Now, let's talk about the Skinwalker. What exactly the difference? Okay, so that's the Wendigo. It's basically a spirit that'll possess a human being if they succumb to cannibalism. And again, the spirit is now living inside them, and it's difficult to know. This could be like your homie that's now a Wendigo. Skinwalker's a little different. This comes from Navajo. This is a part of like a southwestern tradition. Okay, and a Skinwalker is typically like a witch or a shaman who's gained the ability to shapeshift into animals by engaging in forbidden practices, such as, murdering a close relative. I've heard different stories of people being like, yo, my uncle, and this again comes from, people that I've read about that live on a res, and they'll say like, yo, my uncle was a Skinwalker. We never really saw him much, but when he was young, he kind of knew these other Skinwalkers, and they're basically like these witches, these shamans, and they go into the cave and they basically give him a deal where they say, hey, you are going to get this ability, this power to shapeshift. You can be anything. Any type of animal. Maybe you could be a woman. I don't know. I think that's part. Aren't natives? Don't they have like two spirit? It's like basically trans or something. I don't know. But that's what I would do. I'd be a bad bitch for sure. But regardless, most of these Skinwalkers will then transform into different animals to then, basically prey on human beings, and that's what people describe. And there's all sorts of stories of these Skinwalkers. And basically, in order to get this ability, you have to do the ultimate evil. You have to kill someone, and not just anyone. You have to kill someone close to you, a homie, one of your boys. Got to take them out. So I've read stories of people being like, yo, my uncle went. All of a sudden, my cousin, my uncle's brother, whatever, like goes missing. No one can find him. And then ever since that day, my uncle's been a little different. There was like a darkness inside of him. And these Skinwalkers are typically evil. I don't know if you got to be evil, but I'm assuming if you're willing to kill like your best friend, then, makes sense. Again, some of the legends, they kind of change. Some of the legends of the Skinwalker is that the Skinwalker is in and of itself an evil being. Other people believe the Skinwalker is a human being that then possesses the abilities of this evil being and kind of like invites it in once it does this, evil act. Again, depending on your tradition and depending on kind of what your tribal heritage is, sometimes the stories may vary. The most creepy thing probably from these Skinwalkers is probably their ability to mimic. That's a thing that you're going to find in a lot of the stories. The ability to mimic, to sort of change their voice, to imitate someone and to kind of like trick them to coming out into the woods. And look, I go camping a lot. Obviously, it's the namesake of this show. I know a lot of people that go camping. I know people that work in the, national parks. And there's something fucking weird, dude, about being in a park late at night, being out in the woods. You just get a feeling, bro. There's actually a term for this, for like long-term like hiking expeditions. I think it's called the third man syndrome. And this is a phenomenon that's experienced by people that are typically on some type of like long journey. I first heard about this from a gentleman named Ernest Shackleton, one of my favorite explorers ever. This guy's just an absolute badass. I love him. On his ship, the Endurance, they go down to the Antarctic. They get stuck in an ice floe, and basically he leads all of his men back to safety, gets them all back to England by himself, basically, in like the 1800s. He's just an absolute beast. But sometimes people will describe this idea of being hiking through the woods, going for a long time, you and another person, and all of a sudden you just feel a presence. And you feel like there's another thing there. You feel like maybe you're being watched. Sometimes it's malevolent. Sometimes it's benevolent. And it's just kind of, it's around you. And people have reported like, oh, I've been on these hikes and all of a sudden I just felt like there was a presence with me and it was just watching me and it was helping me. It was guiding me. Or the alternate, it'll be like, oh, I was walking and there was this negative spirit that was following me and I went the other way and it went away. It's a real thing. It's documented. Most of the people I know that spend a lot of time out in the woods describe stuff like this. And then you hear stories about, finding staircases out in the woods. I mean, these staircases are so creepy. I mean, here are a couple pictures that you can just see these staircases. You go out deep into the woods, and these are like in national parks. So I'm talking like thousands and thousands of acres where you don't see anything. And then all of a sudden there just is a random staircase just standing right there. Sometimes they're spiral. Sometimes it's just, 10 steps going straight up. It's made out of wood. It's a little decrepit. And again, people have theorized like these are used for some type of ritual ceremony, that different people in the woods, shamans, again, these skinwalkers, that they use these as portals, that if you climb them, it's a portal to a different dimension. It's a portal to hell. It's a way to trap human souls and a way for skinwalkers to feast on the living. Look, I've never seen one. I'm not going to speculate. I mean, you see these pictures of them all the time and they're fucking so creepy. Imagine being out in the woods, you and your boys, you're just walking around, all of a sudden you see a staircase. Like, who put what? There's no house here. There's no woods. So the advice is always like, if you see a staircase in the woods, don't climb it. Don't even go near it. And look, I, after reading about some of these stories, feel like I have some skinwalker stories. Like I'll share mine first. I have a couple. So what's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because I'm coming on the road. That's right. Pottstown, PA. Friday, November 8th, 2024, I'll be at Soul Joel's. You can come see me do 1 hour of stand-up comedy, nothing more and nothing less. It's going to be an amazing time. And if you're not near Pottstown, don't worry, because I'm coming to Stamford, Connecticut. I'm going to New York Comedy Club. That's right. They have a bunch of amazing clubs in the city and also an amazing one in Stamford, Connecticut, November 13th. If you want to come hang out, come hang with me, say what's up. I'll be talking to everybody after the show. We'll be doing an hour of comedy, guys. Stand-up comedy. It's my passion. It's what I love to do when I'm not inside this tent. So come kick it with me. Bunch of crazy stories. We'll have a great time. You can find the link at my Instagram. Get it in the story. I'll put it in the description. I can't wait to see you guys there. Let's get back to the show. Hey guys, really quick. Did you know that on this day in history in 1582, Pope Gregory introduced the Gregorian calendar, which most of the world still uses today? Or that in 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite, into orbit. This event triggered the space race between the USA and the USSR. I learned these facts pretty recently, actually, on the S'more Camp newsletter. That's right, S'more Camp, the inner sanctum. For this kind of show, we do a ton of research. I have different researchers and friends that help me find information, and not everything can make the episode. Either it's like too crazy, it's too like weird or gory, and it will get demonetized on YouTube, or it's just additional and it doesn't always make it, but it always makes it into the S'more Camp Inner Sanctum newsletter. So if you are interested in expanding your mind, learning new information, and being the most interesting person into every room you step into, check it out in the description or this QR code right here. Now let's get back to the show. I was in high school. I was like a junior or senior in high school. It was probably like 2014, 2015. And every single year with my soccer team, we would do these trips where we would go up to North Carolina and we would stay on a campus in North Carolina, like deep in the woods. We'd be completely like off the beaten path. And we would spend time out there for like a soccer retreat with my high school team. And we'd all go out there and we'd play soccer during the day. And then we'd, sit by the campfire at night and we'd tell stories. And it was just super fun. And late at night, on some of the nights, we would kind of just like do pranks on each other. So like all the seniors would be in one camp, all the juniors would be in another camp, and we'd all have our own different cabins. And then we would like wake up at 2 a.m. and like do pranks on the other cabins. So one time my entire cabin get up at like 2:30 in the morning, and we're trying to plan a prank on one of the other cabins. So we go out kind of into like this cornfield, and it's just like miles and miles of cornfield. We're just standing out there, and the corn's pretty tall. It's coming up to like our eyes. And we're sitting out there, and it's, again, like 2:30, 3 in the morning, which people describe as the witching hour. This is what is, like, again, part of lore, part of legend. Again, I'm gonna try to be reasonable about these things, but the idea is that is like the liminal phase when our world and the spirit world are at its closest, is like historically what people say, like around like 3 o'clock, the witching hour. And we're in this cornfield. Corn's like up to here, and then there's like, a little hill, and then the road is right on top of the hill. So we're standing there. There's no lights. It's completely pitch black. You can see the stars perfectly. We are out in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, and the moonlight is just illuminating the road and part of the cornfield. And it's me and like probably 10, 15 guys. We're standing out there, and then all of a sudden we're like talking, and my buddy just taps me on the arm. He's like, "Yo, shh." And I'm assuming like, oh, one of the coaches is coming by, like our athletic trainer is going to be like, "Why the hell are you guys outside? Get back inside." And I'm like, what? And he points to the road. He goes, "Look." So I'm standing there, and I look up at the road, and I just see a guy walking, but like kind of like speed walking. Like he looked like a speed walker. If you've ever seen someone like a speed walker in like the Olympics, like they kind of like move fast and like they kind of contort their body like this. And he's walking just on the hill, kind of like on the road above us. And so we're below, and we can see him. And it's like 15 of us. We're right next to the road in this cornfield. Like you could probably see us. We've also been talking pretty loud for the past 15, 20 minutes. So if you're walking on the road, you'll definitely see like, oh, there's like a bunch of young dudes standing in this field. And he's walking, doesn't look at us at all, doesn't ever acknowledge that we're there, and just is looking straight forward and kind of walking sort of like this like kind of demented sort of like limber, fast walk. Not jogging, not running. He's not wearing running clothes. I can't remember exactly what he was wearing. I feel like he's wearing like a shirt that was like maybe torn up. Like at first I thought he was like a homeless dude, like just a tweaker, like a crackhead. But I don't know what a crackhead is doing at 3 a.m. at the witching hour in North Carolina in the middle of nowhere, walking fast. Like he's like, it's not like abnormally fast, but he's like moving. And we're just standing there, and we see the guy go on the hill, and everyone kind of gets quiet, and we all just sort of just watch him as he's going across the road, and never once does he look at us. He doesn't ever come back, and he just walks off down the road. And we just all kind of looked at each other like, well, that was fucking creepy. Like, we thought we were out there alone, and like you get out into the woods with your boys, kind of just like talking late at night, like you get a little spooked. But we were just standing there like, all right, you guys want to go in? Let's do the prank later. We were like, this sucks. So that was when I was doing a lot of like the Skinwalker Wendigo research and reading different stories. One of the things that always comes up is that they sort of move kind of with like this demented kind of movement. So it just reminded me of that. Was it a tweaker? Was it a crackhead? Maybe. I don't know. Was it a skinwalker? It's Halloween, okay? When it's Halloween time, we explore the unknown. So I'm going to say maybe. I have another one. This one is again maybe more plausible, but it's also a little creepier. So this happened to a friend of mine. It was a true story. He's down in Florida, and he had a surgery where basically he got like part of his back fixed, and the doctors prescribed him like a prescription pain med. I don't exactly remember what it was, and he had been having this back pain for a long time leading up to this, and it was just causing him a lot of trouble just in his day-to-day life, and he was just in pain, and it was just sort of messing with his psyche too, because he couldn't work as much, and it was affecting, like his family life, and he couldn't play with his kids as much, and he couldn't help his wife around the house as much. So it was just like affecting him just on like on a psychological level. He just felt like it was a real trial. And I bring this up specifically in this story because the Skinwalkers in the Wendigo are, described as being able to be like a chimera. They kind of hybridize, where like they'll get like hooves, or they'll get, like half human, at the top, and then like they'll have like hooves and stuff at the bottom, like almost like a Baphomet kind of thing. You've never seen that. It's like a depiction of Satan that people have used in like pagan, like in occult circles. Again, if these things are real, who knows? We'll get into those stories later. But back to my friend. So he's having the surgery, and he has the surgery, and the surgery goes fine. And then he gets given like a prescription pain med, and he gets this pain med, and he's not sleeping super good. And he's not really sure if it's the pain med because he's still kind of uncomfortable, but he's not sleeping great. So basically he He's laying in bed, and this is like the second or third night after the surgery. And he's laying there, and his wife is asleep next to him. And I think he has one of his kids kind of like in the crib in the far side of the room, and he's got a couple other kids in the house. And he's laying there, and he's been like hearing stuff throughout like the day or two. Like he'll just kind of be walking, and he'll just like hear his name, just like kind of like out of the corner of his ear, and he'll like turn his head, and he won't see anything. And he's just like, I just not really sleeping that good, and like also taking some like prescription pain meds, and it's just kind of messing with his head. So he's just like going through the house, and all of a sudden he'll hear like, and he'll be like, what is that? And he'll just kind of look around, and nothing will be there. So it's just been messing with him. And then nighttime comes around, and again around like 2:33 in the morning, he's laying in bed, and all of a sudden he hears that same noise, and all of a sudden all the hair on his skin like kind of stands up, and he gets goosebumps, and he's like, what the fuck is it? And he's laying there, and he thinks about like waking up his wife, but he's like, I don't want to be a bitch and like wake up my wife. And so he just kind of lays there, like opens his eyes and looks around, and doesn't see anything. And again, it's pitch black in his room, the lights are off. Like he sees some of the light from like some of the outside, pool lights like kind of coming in through the curtain, but it's just like, lightly illuminating the room. And he can hear something, and he hears it like on the roof of his house. And at first he thinks like, are there people breaking into my house? Like, what is going on? And he hears what on the roof sounds like footsteps, but it's not feet. It's like hooves. It's like he hears like, literally it sounds like a deer. Like it's like fucking Christmas. He's like, it's like someone playing a prank on me. Like, what is happening? And he's just he's laying there, and he can hear it over the roof, like where he is. And it's just like step, step, step. And it's not feet. It's hard. It's like hooves on the roof. And he's like, what the fuck is going on? And it's freaking him out. And he has sort of like this weird feeling where like his body's kind of tingling, and like he feels like a sensation in him. And again, he's kind of assuming it's like the prescription meds, or he's not sleeping. And he's just laying there, and he's able to like not hear something in his ears, but he hears it like in his brain, is the way he described it to me. He's like, I heard it in my brain, like it was a thought that I had, but it wasn't my thought. It wasn't my voice. And so again, he hears that, looks around, doesn't see anything, hears the footsteps, the hooves on the roof, and then hears a voice in his head that's basically like, hey, they don't believe you. And that's what the voice is saying to him in his head. And he's, again, kind of been telling his wife that he's like been hearing stuff, and she's just like, oh, I'm sure you're tired. Like, I'm sure everything's okay. And again, he's feeling crazy because he's like, why am I hearing all this stuff? Like, what is going on with me? And why can't I like, he feels like he's not helping his family. And the voice all of a sudden like validates his feeling. He goes, they don't believe you. And he can hear it in his head. And he's like, what the fuck? And all of a sudden he keeps on hearing the shifting. And he kind of assumes it's like Baphomet. He thinks it's Satan. He thinks straight up Satan is on his roof. And again, you can see a picture of Baphomet here, like with the hooves and stuff. Like he kind of has a feeling like, oh, Satan is talking to me while I'm laying in this bed right now. And the creepiest part of the story is he says, I know how they'll believe you. And again, he's talking about like his kids and his wife. They're like, haven't been super sympathetic with like his back pain or with other things he's been struggling with. And he goes, I know how they'll believe you, that, they'll believe that I'm real. They'll believe that someone's talking to you. And here's how you can prove it. And the voice, again, is just in his head. He's not hearing in his ears. It's just penetrating into his brain. And the voice basically just says like, climb the wall. And my friend is laying there. He's like, what the fuck is happening? And at this point, like his hands are kind of shaking, and like he's kind of like trembling, and like he's like kind of sweaty. And the voice is in his head being like, climb the wall. You can climb it. You can go onto the ceiling. You can go upside down. You can do things that they can't do. And if you do that, they'll believe you. And he's like laying in the bed, and he's like, what the fuck? And he starts to kind of like hyperventilate, and he's starting to like panic, and he's like, I shouldn't do this, but like, is this a sign? Am I dreaming? Like, what is even happening? He goes and he wakes up his wife, and she wakes up, and she's like, what's wrong? And he's like, nothing. I just need like some water, and like maybe just turn the lights on, and can you just like be with me for a little? And she kind of wakes up, and they kind of like turn the lights on. She's like, yeah, what's the problem? What's going on? And he's like, I've just been hearing stuff. Like, I don't know, the meds I'm on are just like making me hear stuff. It's really weird. And yeah, basically he wakes up, and at one more point during the rest of that night, he hears the feet on the roof on the part above his house. And but he doesn't hear the voice anymore. And then he kind of gets off the meds after that and just sort of deals with the rest of the pain. And then from that point on, starts to kind of feel better, and never heard the voice again. Now, again, is it possible that this guy was doing prescription pain meds and didn't sleep that good and started hearing stuff? Sure. I think that's probably the most likely explanation. Pretty creepy nonetheless that this happened to someone. You know what I mean? I don't think he was lying to me. I think he was like, no, something happened in my brain. If it was real or not, the reality that I experienced was that there was some shit on the roof telling me to climb up the wall, hang upside down, like fucking Exorcist. That's kind of psycho. And then furthermore, just I don't know, some people described, like, you know, if by doing substances like this, or like by being sleep deprived, do you imagine things in your mind, or do you expose yourself to a supernatural world, a place where you can actually see things? And that is very real. That is very legitimate. I don't know. Pretty creepy nonetheless. There's been some videos that I found, like on TikTok and stuff, that apparently show Skinwalkers. So this is one of them. Let's watch this one together, shall we? And again, I hate scary stuff. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't like it. It freaks me out. Even if I know it's fake, or even like a scary movie is like, yeah, it's fake, but it's just, I don't know. So we'll just watch these together and just get spooked. This is one that I found on TikTok. Apparently showing a skinwalker. Again, a skinwalker is a witch. It is a shaman. It is a person that has done deplorable deeds to gain a power to sort of shift their body. So this is apparently what this is showing.
This is cruisers, man. That's crazy shit. Come on, I like goddamn. What's up, dude?
Bro, I don't know, man. This is freaky, dog. Like, it is grainy footage, sure. It is a little like not the best footage, but it is like, what is that? And what is it just a hoax? Is it just a guy filming it in the woods? Maybe. But even if someone is filming it and just faking it like that, I don't know, bro. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Like, if you see that in the woods, what are you gonna do? You're out in the woods, you're hiking alone, you're doing a solo camping mission because you're just like, yeah, I just want to. You're with your boys. Oh, you're camping. Oh, let me just pop off and pee. You've been drinking a little bit. All of a sudden, you see that guy. Maybe it is just like a homeless dude. Let's just say it's either like it is a hoax. It is like a homeless guy, like a crackhead that's like out there doing something weird, or like a natural explainable phenomena, or it's a skinwalker. It is supernatural. What the percentages are of those things on a normal day, I would say it's probably not a skinwalker. On Halloween during this week, when we're just being spooky as hell, I'm going skinwalker. All right, let's watch another one.
Oh, what the crap? Is that a guy? What the frick? What the fuck? What was that?
So this video is hilarious to me for a couple reasons. One, I mean, it looks creepy. It's a weird video. But also just the guy filming is Mormon, I'm assuming, because he just goes, what the frick? Like, bro, you just saw maybe a demon or a witch, and you're like, well, I don't want to cuss. You know what I mean? What the frick was that? There's always sometimes like you'll read stories or like hear stories. The thing about these skinwalkers that I think is like the scariest story is like the mimicry, the ability to mimic. Oh, this one is creepy. Hold on, look at this video.
We out here hearing weird noises in the forest.
With the eyes
What
poking.
the
Oh,
fuck? Oh,
bro.
what the
I'm like, be honest, bro. You see this shit in the woods, like, that is weird. Oh, what is that? Look, I need a follow-up on a lot of these videos because the fact that there's no follow-up makes me be like, all right, this is nothing maybe. But like, all right, this one is, I found on Reddit. This just happened outside my window. I've never heard anything that sounded like this. Let's just check it out. And again, sometimes bobcats or like other big animals out in the woods, like they sound crazy. But let's just listen to this one.
Holy fuck.
Look, sometimes I want to move out in the woods and just get away. And then other times I hear this shit and I'm like, no, thank you, bro. No, thank you at all. I'm going to go live on a mountain, go live on a farm somewhere alone. Or worse yet, with my kids and my wife, and I got to go protect them from a fucking witch. Nah, this shit is too freaky. All right, what is this one? Oh, what is that?
Is that a cow?
Look, this one is crazy, bro. So again, this is a picture. This is a video of a guy. What is this? Oh, of a person just running around on all fours, sprinting. Whoa, this is so creepy, bro. Look, it's stuff like this that just makes me like, I don't want to move out in the woods. Like, why is someone doing this? Like, why are meth addicts just running around? It might be, maybe, I don't know. It could just be a prank. It could be a crackhead, or it's a fucking werewolf or a skinwalker. I don't know. The mimicry thing is always creepy to me. So this is actually a story of that I've heard. This happened. A friend of mine told me the story. It happened like with his brother apparently. That one time, and this is just a fun little Halloween story. You guys should think about this throughout Halloween. This is great. He was basically laying in bed. He had like a little sinus infection, and again, he lives by himself in the city. He's in New York, and he lives by himself. He's got like a studio apartment, and it's like an old building. It's like a little creepy. Like he always says, like, "Oh, I'm in the shower," and like I'll just like hear someone walking outside, and then I'll pop out, and no one's out there. Like obviously, I live alone. Like, you know, it's an apartment, and like everyone that's lived in the apartment has been there a long time. It was built in like the 1900s, so obviously, you know, if you live in New York, like not only do you live on Native American burial ground because the whole shit is native, but on top of that, every building you live in, like if it's an old building, some shit has happened in there. Someone's died in there. It's been around since the 1900s, and people turn over all the time. So like obviously something has happened in your place that is like not good. There's been a domestic dispute. There's been a drug addict. There's been some type of negative energy that's in your apartment, no matter where you live, if you live in an old building. And so one night he's laying in bed, he's about to go to sleep, and he sneezes. And in the middle of the pitch black, all of a sudden he hears, "Bless you." Never heard it again. That's just a story he told me. Just think about that tonight when you're going to sleep. You're closing your eyes, laying all cozy in your bed, and you feel a sneeze coming on. You feel it tickling in your nose. If you sneeze, listen close. You might just hear a very polite ghost. You might just hear a little, "Bless you." We're being spooky. This next story we're going to read is an absolute classic. What's up, guys? We're going to take a break really quick because I need to tell you how to get your health in control, okay? With this thing right here. It's called Whoop. I love it. I didn't think I was going to be a big Whoop guy. I tried it out like a year ago, and I haven't taken it off since. I got a bunch of different bands, and I really enjoy it, all right? Right now, I'm doing Sober October. I'm off the booze. I'm off the K, off the Fent, everything. I just caffeine and nicotine. That's all I've been up to. But there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Just no alcohol, because alcohol is the thing that messes your sleep up the most. And caffeine after 2 p.m. That's just my personal thing. I'll be honest, I have a kid. I should not be getting this much sleep, but because I'm doing Sober October, I've been sleeping unbelievably well. Last night, I got 81% recovery with a newborn. Night before that, 74% recovery with a newborn. Night before that, 20%. Whatever, all right? All I'm saying is if you're interested in getting control of your health, you're going to go to join.whoop.com/camp, all right? CAMP. That's where you're going to find me. I'm actually going to try to make a community. I don't know if this is even possible. I'm saying this without even really knowing the details. I'm going to make a community. So if you are a listener to this program and you get a Whoop or you already have a Whoop, you can join me in our community. We can track our sleep together. We're basically sleeping together if you want to think about it that way. All right. Every night, you and I snuggled up, cozy next to the campfire. So listeners of this show, you're going to get 1 month free when you join with the promo code CAMP. Check it out. Join.whoop.com. facebook.com/camp. Let's get back to the show. This is known as Anansi's Goatman story. It was posted onto 4chan on December 29th, 2012. And in the spirit of Halloween, I think this story is absolutely amazing. So again, I will be telling this from her perspective as it's written. She initially begins the story kind of in a 4chan sort of bullet point style, but then later moves on. So I'll read it as such. Be 16, be black, and have family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land in Huntsville. My uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put out in the woods for, hunting or camping. Down south, cousins suggest that we go out there to camp. Now, I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease me if we get to the camp, and it's obvious that something is weird. The air has this weird, electric smell, right before a storm or something. And we think nothing of it and unpack and go down to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says hello and asks us what we're doing this far back in the woods. I tell him about my uncle, who he happens to know, and says we're camping out. He tells us that we need to be really, really careful and stick together because there's something in the woods, like a big animal or something that's kind of been, I guess, freaking him out for the past couple weeks. His son, who's roughly my age and kind of the age of the group, asks if he could stay and hang out with us. And, the guy says, okay. So we end up all playing football. Dicking around with me, there's this white kid, Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. Again, I don't know everybody in the group, but in total, there's 5 girls and 6 boys. We're all around 15, 17 years old, and we end up just having fun during the day, literally just doing shit around the campsite. Eventually, we head back to the camp, pull out some stuff for a campfire, and even though the trailers both had kitchenettes, we decided to cook outside. Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's. He wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come out camping with us. My cousin Rooster says he's going to go with him since it's going to get dark pretty soon. One of the girls also wants to tag along. It's about 7 p.m., and it's starting to get pretty dark. They grab flashlights and take the trail towards Tanner's property, and the rest of us just decide to chill. And then about 30 or 40 minutes later, there's that smell, that weird metallic-y, unsettling smell. And you could notice it over the scent of the fire. That's how strong it was. It's just this nasty, coppery, right after you've had a nosebleed or something and it stops, it's almost like metal. It's like dried blood, but it's in the back of your throat. It's weird. We immediately assume it's some type of electrical malfunction or that someone left a hot plate on or something. We search the trailer and nothing's on, but we can all smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking it down the path towards us. We hear the footsteps going fast. Rooster, Tanner, and the girl all come running back into the clearing, out of breath. They don't even break stride. They all run directly into the trailer, right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there and run straight into the trailers with them. They end up calming down, and even Rooster is crying, sobbing, crying. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower. So my other cousins say, you know what, F it. Let's go outside and get the generator out of the shed between the trailers. And Tanner just screams. He goes, no, don't go outside. Lock the front door. Nobody else is going outside. And he's been crying too. His eyes are still bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are super dirty. He goes on to tell us what went on up near his house. His father said, sure, you can go out camping, but to make sure that they were careful on the way back and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in the yard a few days before. One of their pigs or their chickens or something had been, ripped up and half eaten. They assumed it was just some type of big cat or a coyote, even though they don't usually fuck with the living animals. Tanner went upstairs, packed his stuff, and told his dad that he would be okay without the rifle because coyotes, they don't want to deal with people, so they just run away. And they started walking back towards where they were camping. Rooster finally stops crying and sobbing, and the girl already had, but now is just staring out the window with sort of a dumb look on her face. He says that they had gotten halfway into the woods toward the camp when they'd started to hear some shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by that time. So they weren't sure at first what the hell was going on in the woods. The girl says that she heard something in the bushes right off the trail. They all beamed their flashlights over there, and there was someone standing in the woods, like in like a little clearing of the trees. And Rooster said that they shouted at him and told him that he was scaring them and that he was being a dickhead and that he should just walk away or do something. He says that's when he realized that the guy was facing away from them. So they kept walking and they started smelling that same metallic, nasty smell. They said that they looked off into the forest on the opposite side and there was a dude standing there too, backwards, slightly closer to the path that they were walking on. So now they start like power walking and Tanner just keeps going like, I should have taken the fucking rifle. Why didn't I take it? I'm such an idiot. As they're telling the story, the smell is now super strong in the trailer. Even inside the cabin, you can just smell it everywhere. And they say that after they started walking faster, they started to hear like this low, like murmuring in the woods, and it began coming from both sides of the forest. And as they booked it back to the trailer, the girl said that she flashed her light to the side of them and saw someone jerking themselves through the woods, kind of walking in kind of this maniacal, demented way. And the sound got louder and louder and louder, and they could see the light of our campfire, and something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them on the track. And then they just flat out ran as fast as they could, and that's when we heard them run into the cabin. So we're out in the woods, and we're assuming at this point it's like some rednecks or some shit trying to mess with us. And all of a sudden, my other cousin, Junior, starts going on about how he went to school with a native kid who was telling them about this thing called the Goatman. And we promptly tell him to shut up because now is not the time to be talking about the Goatman and trying to spook everybody out while we're already scared. But he just keeps going on and on about how it's the Goatman and how we're in his woods, blah, blah, blah. Now, at this time, I had never heard of a Goatman or anything like that, right? This is a couple years ago. To sum it up, the Goatman is basically a man with the head of a goat that can shapeshift and get among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be kind of like a Wendigo. It's bad mojo to even talk about it, and even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know any of this back when I was 16. So my cousin is going, the Goatman's going to get us and he's going to eat us. And the girls are all terrified. And my cousins and I are all trying to figure out if it's just some hillbillies or an animal. All of a sudden, the smell just goes away. To this day, I haven't experienced anything like this. Obviously, smells usually fade away or lessen, but it literally was just there 1 second. And then the next second, it's completely gone. So after like an hour, making it probably like 9 or 10 p.m., we've kind of collected ourselves and we've stopped freaking out enough just to go outside and, try to get the fire going again. We figure it's just some assholes trying to mess with us. So we don't go back home because we think if we do, they'll chase us through the woods or some crazy shit. No one wants to go back in the woods. And to be honest, nothing else weird happens that night. We stay another night, and for the main part of that night, nothing happens. But at about 1 a.m, we're outside getting drunk and kind of feeling spooky, so we tell ghost stories. And as someone is finishing some scary story, I don't even remember about what, the smell comes back. And it's so strong that one of the girls literally starts to like dry heave. And I stand up and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. And I say to everyone, hey, we should get inside. This is not right. This is really weird. And to be honest, we should have just left. We all go back inside and we're standing around, and my cousin keeps going on about how it's the Goatman, and my other cousin Rooster tries to tell him to shut the hell up. And all the while, I'm just feeling like something is wrong and I can't figure out what is happening. So we end up sitting there for a while. And the smell is just as strong, and we're terrified and all huddled in like this camper. And we end up like cooking like some hot dogs or something for everybody because nobody wants to go outside. And it's one of those packs with like 4 hot dogs. And we have a total of 3 packs, and I grill them up on the stove and give everyone a hot dog. Then I get mine. And after a while, one of my cousin gets up and he goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts kind of, bitching about how I got 2 hot dogs and everybody else only got 1. And I look at him like he's stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were 12 hot dogs, and that if he wanted more, he should open up a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl that had been out with Rooster and Tanner just starts screaming, Oh, Jesus, oh, Lord, get it out. She's crying and shivering, and then it dawns on the cousin standing up what is wrong. Me and him both glance around the room, and I feel my heart just sink. I run out of the cabin, and the girl runs out with us, and the trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer as everyone books it out. One of my cousin's friends asks us what is going on. He stops everyone. He's like, guys, why the fuck is everyone running? And I start to count. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified. There have been 12 people in the cabin. There have been 12 people the entire time. But being that everybody didn't really know each other that well, nobody had noticed the whole fucking time that there was an extra person. And then I realized earlier that I had kind of noticed something was off. Like, you know how when you're just like dicking around having a good time, you don't like sweat the small stuff and you don't always keep track of everything? I'm dead sure that someone else had been in the trailer with us and that they had been there for at least an entire day eating with us. And what makes it even worse is that I couldn't figure out who it was because I don't think anyone actually ever interacted with the other person / Goatman. The girl kept praying to Jesus and we're all sitting outside. Eventually, we get these big ass sticks and go back in the cabin and there's nobody in there. We count again, and there's 11 people. We go back to the trailer and lock the door. We explain what the hell happened, and the girl says that she realized too, and that when she was about to say something, the person sitting next to her had grabbed her leg hard, leaned over to her, and said something she couldn't understand. So we were pretty much scared as hell as we huddled together, and, to be honest, I fell asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up, and half the people are asleep, and the other half are packing all of our shit up. We want to walk back home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think that we're just messing around and still want to stay in the trailers and they're trying to act all tough, like they're not scared. I just wanted to get the hell out of the woods. So this one girl's name was Kira, the one that the Goatman had touched, I guess. Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she just is kind of freaked out and just says she wants to go home and she does not want to be in the woods alone for another night. So we decide to split up. The 4 that want to go, they can go. But I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin and it's my uncle's and I have to lock it up. Whatever. I'm pissed at this point because I feel like people are not taking this seriously at all. And I definitely did not want to be out in the woods for another night. I spent the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people, now 4 girls and 4 guys, to get the hell out. Tanner leaves with them to get a rifle and says he's going to be back. So there's just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m., he still hasn't made it back. And again, we're getting like a little antsy. The only reason I stopped begging them to leave was because he went to go get a gun. At around 5:30 p.m., the one cousin that did stay says that the girl Kira is outside. We all look outside and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so scared, why the hell is she back? Why would she come all the way back? And then I get this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind, the whole time, the coppery smell has been gone, and now I realize that I can kind of smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them. Everybody, and these are the people that wanted to stay in the fucking woods after we had the goddamn Goatman in our midst, is laughing at me and asking me if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like, hey, I'm not fucking bullshitting you at all right now. So I asked them, why would I play like that? So one of the girls goes outside to get Kira, and she gets halfway to her, and I swear she just stops cold. Kira is dry heaving, and I don't even know how to describe it. Sort of like if someone with their back turned was like laughing, but like not actually making a sound, just kind of, contorting. It was this fact that made me realize that there was not a sound in the entire woods. It was dead silent. This was like late September, so it was still fairly hot at the time, but still chilly some days too. And you could usually hear these like big geese honking or some kind of birds or like squirrels chit-chatting. I step out the door and tell the girl to come back in the trailer right now. She backs up to it and we lock the door. We pull down all the shades except one and put a guy in a chair to watch Kira, who's standing there for another 20 minutes or so. Eventually, the guy turns to say that she's still there, and then there's a huge bang on the door. We all jump up and we scramble and we run around the living room of the trailer, and the banging is super loud. My cousin is now holding one of the girls, and the other 2 are kind of giggling with like nervous laughter, and me and the other 2 guys are just absolutely shitting ourselves. And then we hear Tanner. He's outside. He's screaming, "Let me the fuck in. Stop playing. Let me in." We go over to the door. We open it. He stumbles inside with a rifle. Nobody else is outside. Eventually, he had walked up to the campsite. Evidently, nothing weird was happening in the forest, but then he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said it was not Kira standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned towards him with a slack-jawed look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't until he was about halfway to the trailer that he realized that she was actually getting closer. She had started off by the fire, and then without him even seeing her move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said that he ran the rest of the way back to the cabin thinking it would open, but then he got to the door and it was locked, and turns out it was about half the distance to the door. He looks around the room and gets super pale. He looks at me, pulls me to the side, and whispers in my ear, "You know, there are only 7 of us in here, right?" I get that feeling where your stomach just drops and all the blood drains out of you. And it had been back inside the trailer while we were sorting out who was going to go where. And then when we all went outside to talk earlier in the day, it just slipped right back in, I guess. We looked out the window and there was nobody there. So we recount. Then I go over and ask everyone, how many people were in here earlier? And everybody says 8. I say, well, how many are there now? They all do the count and realize that there are only 7 people in the cabin. Tanner had brought back a couple boxes of ammo and his rifle. He told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think he would believe him, obviously if he said there was a Goatman. He says that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours and that in the morning we can all go back to his place and that his cousin will drive us home. Now, at this point, I'm really terrified, but I at least feel better because we can be, American about it and shoot the hell out of whatever comes to get us. But then my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny and prank them. And she's getting really scared and thinks that I'm not funny anymore. He keeps telling her, I'm not that kind of person. And she goes, well, how do we know the girl wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if there's really a Goatman, how do we know that this is the real Tanner and that the Goatman didn't kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun? So we get into this huge argument where me and Tanner are like, we could seriously be in danger because at the very least, someone has been sneaking themselves into our trailer without us knowing and mingling with us. And at worst, something bad is in the forest with us. So one of the girls at this point is crying and saying that she wants to go right now. And we're telling her that she shouldn't because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down and it's getting a little cloudy. So we eat something and turn on the radio for a while, but we can't really get the station quite right with anything decent. So we turn it off about the time that Tanner's cousin shows up. He was like 19, I think. Now the sun is barely over the horizon and he has one of those heavy-duty lantern flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer and we whisper to Tanner, asking if he's sure that's his cousin, and he says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp, then walks in. He kind of glances at all of us and looks a little confused. Then he says, where's your other little buddy at? I figured he would meet up with me at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something? He also asked whether we had been cooking blood in the cabin because it smelt like blood and hot pans all the way up to the trail. And we're all like, nope. Then we ask him what the hell he's talking about the girl he saw. He had come down the same trail Tanner had been using and found one of your guy's buddies standing in the middle of the trail looking at him. He asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was look at him. Then he smiled and kept on walking. She couldn't seem to keep up with him and kept lagging a little behind, almost walking with like a limp. He asked her if she was hurt or something or if she needed any help, but she just continued to stare at him. Eventually, he turned around a bend on the trail, and when he went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He assumed she had taken some shortcut through the woods to our trailer or something, and we tell him the whole story of everything that's been going on. I half expect him to say we were full of shit, but he just listened and sat down on the couch in the living room. Tanner's cousin gets back to the girl. He says that when she had kept trying to lag behind him, it kind of weirded him out, so he tried to keep her in front of him, but no matter how slow he walked, she was always lagging a little behind. And around that time, he smelled this nasty smell, and it got stronger as he got to the camp. Eventually, it got really strong. She said something really low, and he didn't quite catch what she said. And when he turned around, she had been right the fuck on him. He stepped back from her, and at this point, he asked if she was okay, If she wasn't, he offered to carry her back the rest of the way. She just kept staring, slack-jawed. He said that he reached out for her, as in to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged the distance because she was off to the side where he had put his hand, like she had just moved while he was looking dead at her. It was really strange. So at this point, we know that shit's real. Unless Tanner is playing a joke, which we can tell he's not because he's also almost pissing his pants. They load up their rifles, we eat some more, and we just kind of sit around until like 11 p.m. To this day, every time I think about this, I really pray to God it's just some huge prank that my cousins played on me and just never revealed, so I would shit myself for the rest of my life. Here's what happens. At around 11 p.m., the stink of copper turned into like an actual gross blood smell, like cooked blood and like singed hair or something. Tanner and his cousin Reese get up and instantly grab the rifles. There's like a half like knocking or like clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's this voice, and it sounds like when you see like those cats or dogs on YouTube and like the owners teach them how to like talk or something. It says in this halting, weirdly toned voice, "Let me the fuck in, stop fucking playing." It made my nuts creep against my body, and one of the girls just starts crying and calling for Jesus, and it was so fucking obviously not a person talking. It didn't even have like the right cadence. That's just some shit that I'd never realized until this moment, but like all the people have a certain cadence when they talk, no matter what language. All the people have a certain rhythm when they talk. This shit did not have any cadence or rhythm. It sounded like it sounded like a cat, but it was not a cat. This is what it sounded like outside the door.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
It sounded almost like this, just not funny. Sorry for being on a tangent, but like if you can't imagine how this shit sounded, then you can't imagine how fucked up the whole situation was. So now I'm just in full-on terror mode. We keep yelling outside, like, "Who is it? Like, stop fucking around." And it just keeps on saying in that weird voice, "In. Let me in." For almost 15 minutes, and then the smell goes away for a while. And for the next hour or so, you can hear someone basically creeping around the woods and shit. Every couple minutes, it comes back to the door and it says something. Finally, the smell fades away. Around 2 a.m, Reese just says, "Man, fuck this." Opens the door and walks outside with his rifle. He fires a shot into the air and says something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times, and then from the woods, right up against the river, across the trailer, it sounds like something is slowly like gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming, and it sounds almost like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. Like, I seriously have never heard this shit in my life. We can hear the brush over that way start to shake, and Reese fires over into the tree line and then starts backing up to the building. We lock the door and we can hear this shit keening and screaming. Reese says something had to come out of the bushes super low to the ground and was crawling towards the cabin. Crawling, like those videos that we saw earlier. He had shot at it. Pretty much, that was how the rest of the night went. Literally just like constant screaming for the next 2 hours and shit moving out into the tree line. But it never came back to the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tanner had been sitting in the chair watching the door with his rifle. Nobody else heard or saw this, and he told me 2 days later after the whole thing was over. He said he had been nodding off after the screaming and noises finally stopped. He'd been almost asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and then lay down in the middle of the floor and go to sleep. He just assumed it was one of us and that the guy had nodded off. Then he said he kind of realized that something was wrong. And while pretending to be sleeping, he counted us. There were 9 people in the cabin. He didn't want to try shooting at the thing and have it, kill us all then and there, or have Reese wake up and start shooting and, us kill ourselves. So he just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. He said sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird, jittery thing and heave like it was laughing, but then it would just lay back down. And the story, to be honest, closes pretty weak because from my perspective, nothing happened. When we woke up, I noticed that Tanner was pretty jittery and that he was, avoiding looking at all of us. But we ate some breakfast, packed up, started walking to his house. He stayed last in the cabin and said he'd lock up and bring my uncle's keys. He told us just to start walking and that he'd catch up, which I didn't really want to fucking do after everything we had been through. We got a little bit up the path, and when he came running up, we just jogged back to his house. His cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tanner had gone back to lock up and looked in there, and we were too stupid to lock up a screenless window. It was fucking up when he went in there. I'm guessing it had been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or slip in and then getting in among us. It walked with us all the way back to his house, and then he said it lagged to the back of the group, looked at him dead in the eyes before walking into the woods. And that is the Goatman story. That one's pretty freaky. Didn't love that. It's probably not true, I hope. I hope very badly that's not true. I hope that never happened. But if this person is still around, hit me up. Come on the pod. Tell me everything. But yeah, this is ostensibly a true story. Anansi's Goatman story. You can still see the original thread up on 4chan. It has now become the topic of internet lore and will exist probably as one of the spookiest stories on the internet for a while. So let's check out another one. So there's a group of friends. They go hiking in the Arizona desert. Again, these Skinwalkers are very prominent in the southern area, Southwest specifically. And they're exploring sort of like just a landscape near Navajo territory. They're planning a weekend getaway and just trying to disconnect from all the stuff going on, just enjoy nature. And they take one night where they stay at a campsite and everything's great. But then the second night, things get weird. So again, it's like a group of like 4 or 5 friends, and they're all camping and they're at a campfire. And they have their cars there, like they're not super far off. And a bunch of them are from the area. Like they only drove like an hour or two, like sort of this campground thing. But it's off the beaten path, right? So they're sitting around the campfire, and then all of a sudden, one of the friends, this girl Jenny, she's just sitting around the campfire, and she just gets like a feeling where she's like, I'm like, she feels like antsy, she feels unsettled, and she's like, let me just go for a walk. And everyone's kind of drinking, there's like smoking weed, so she's just like, maybe I'll like drink too. I don't know. Let me just go for a walk. Let me just kind of get a little change of scenery. So she starts walking, kind of walks away from the group, and then all of a sudden she hears a voice calling her name, just yelling. And it's like very faint and she can hear it. And she kind of stops while she's walking. She listens really close. And the voice that she hears is not just like a random voice calling her name. And it's not her own voice. It sounds like her mom. And she's like, what? My mom lives like 2 hours east. Like, why? Like, is my mom here? But she hears her mom distinctly, her exact voice yelling her name from off into the distance. So she kind of like walks over and she's like, it's like straight up, she's not really familiar with these like Skinwalker stories. She's not native. Like she just hears this voice and she's like, is my mom over there? Or is like someone messing with me? Like what's happening? So she kind of wanders away and she's sort of walking towards the edge of like the wooded area where they're staying at. And she basically sees like a person near the edge of the woods, like a woman. And she hears the name that is calling her getting louder and louder. She walks over to the edge of the woods and she sees her mom standing basically like at the clearing of the woods. And like as she's walking, she kind of looks back and she sees the campfire and it's a little farther and her friends can't really like see her. And she just hears her name getting called louder and louder and louder. And her mom is standing right there. But her mom is not facing her. Her mom is standing facing into the woods. And so she sees the back of her mom's head and it's calling her name and she's trying to figure out what's going on. So she's walking towards and she's like, Mom, what is going on? Like she's like talking to her mom now, like concerned that her mom is okay. And then all of a sudden, the woman standing in the woods turns around and it's not her mom. It is a demonic, demented, eyes glowing red, warped kind of monstrosity that's facing her. And the voice all of a sudden gets much deeper and continues to call her name and starts to kind of walk towards her. And as it does, with its mouth kind of like open unnaturally wide and like a gape staring at her, she feels arms grab her back and yank her. And she starts to scream and turns around and realizes that it's her friends. And her friends are grabbing her and pulling her away from the woods. And she's telling them and screaming and, is just at this point completely inconsolable. And they go back to the campsite and they ask her, they're like, what's going on? And she looks at her friends. She's like, did you just see that? And they go, see what? She's like, my mom was in the, something that looked like my mom, that was imitating my mom, was in the woods right at the edge. Like I could see like the face of the thing when it turned around, but it wasn't my mom. It was like a demon or something. And it was calling me. And I almost went to it. Like I was like entranced by this thing. It was so scary. And then you guys came and grabbed me. And at this point, all the friends are thoroughly spooked and they're pretty freaked out. So they were like, you know what? Let's just drive back home. So they all jumped in the car and went back to their respective houses. She eventually got home, and as she sort of tells in the story, she's like, I saw my mom and like was a little spooked to be like, hey mom, how are you? And her mom was like, why are you home? And she's like, just weird night. We all wanted to come home. And it seems like it lines up with Navajo legend. A lot of the Navajo stuff will say like, yeah, these things can imitate human beings. We got another story. This is an interesting one. And this happened, interestingly, near the place where I was in North Carolina doing those soccer camps. And I saw that guy walking on the road. But anyway, so this is written by a guy. He calls himself David. Ostensibly, this is a real person, but who knows? It could just be completely fictitious. He writes this. He basically says that around 2:50 in the morning, he's asleep, but his wife is woken up by the sound of their cat meowing downstairs. But something was weird about the meow. It didn't sound like the cat. It sounded like a cat, but it didn't sound like their cat. And it sounded like a cat, like learning how to meow. Like it's weird. So like they're laying in bed and it sounded almost like someone imitating a cat. And so they hear like, meow, meow. But again, when I'm doing it, you can tell like, oh, it's a person doing it. Like it's not really a cat. Like there's a difference that people can pick up on. So as she's laying there in bed, she hears the meowing and she's like, this is loud. And it's going on for several minutes as the meowing is going on, and they're listening to it, and they're like, what is that noise? And again, he's still asleep. It's just only the wife that's hearing it. And the meowing kind of continues, and it stops. And then they hear a bang on their door. And she's like, what the fuck is that? So she's just frozen, okay? And again, the guy's like, my wife didn't wake me up. She's like, was afraid to make any noise. She like didn't move at all. And then the next morning comes around, and the guy, again, he writes, he's like, I basically woke up and I looked over to my wife, and she's asleep, but like did not sleep good. She looks terrible. She only slept like an hour that night. And he's like, what's up with you? And she basically explains what happened. And so he walks around the house and kind of checks the house the next morning and just tries to see everything that's going on. And they have a security system in the house that basically detects motion and like will give them an update on their phone. And so he checks the security device, and it says that motion is detected in the house right when the strange sounds occurred at like 2:52 a.m. Again, right near the witching hour. And he's a little like unnerved, and so he's trying to think like, reasonably, like, what was it? Like, cats are weird. It's possible that the cat was just being weird and then ran upstairs, tried to get in the room, ran to the door, ran back downstairs. Who knows? They looked at the motion detection thing and they couldn't really see anything on the motion detector. So they were like, all right, whatever. Sort of unnerved, kind of not feeling great about it. They decide to go to sleep the next night and put all the pets inside the room where they are. And, basically trying to see if whatever was making that noise was one of their animals. So the next night they go to sleep, and all the animals are sleeping in the room with them. And a couple things happen sort of in order that are pretty weird. He's laying in the bed, and then all of a sudden the cat kind of like perks up in the bed and kind of like sits up. And again, he doesn't hear anything. So the cat just kind of sits up. And then he sees his phone have an alarm that goes off, like an alert, like a notification that says motion detected, 3:05. a.m. And he looks at it and he's like, what the fuck? And he looks over his wife and his wife is still sleeping. And he's like, okay, just as long as she stays asleep, I don't want to freak her out. But like there's motion detected in the house. All the animals are in the room. And now like my cat and my dog are both like kind of weirded out. And again, people say like animals have a different ability to like sort of sense things. Who knows? But the cat is like now sitting up in the bed and the dog is kind of like disturbed and kind of like looking at the door. And at around 3:07 a.m., they hear the meow again. And now the cat is like hackled up and the cat's like freaking out. And the wife wakes up and is looking at the husband like, I fucking told you there's some shit going on downstairs. And so now the cat, they hear this meowing again. And again, it sounds like meow, meow. Like it sounds like a guy making the noise. And they're like, why is there a guy in our fucking house trying to imitate a cat? And they're freaked out and they're laying up there and the cat is all freaked out and the dog is up there. And then the dog starts to bark. And it's a loud bark. And then all of a sudden, they stop hearing the noise. And there's no bang on the door. And the two of them just kind of lay in bed and they're just a little freaked out. And they just lay there the rest of the night. They kind of just look at each other and they're like, all right, let's just try to go to sleep. I think at one point he ends up going up and like locking the door just to the bedroom, just like, all right. And then they try to sleep and they both wake up around, when the sun comes up, like 7:30. They look around and she looks at her husband like, yo, you got to go out there. So he's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. So he goes, looks around the house, doesn't see anything. Again, looks at the motion detected alert that he got on his phone, and there's motion detected, but again, nothing on the motion detection. But they both heard the sound of a guy imitating their cat. So he basically looks around the house, and a couple days later, they discovered that the attic door in their bedroom, kind of like the top part of the attic that, again, is never really touched. There's panels, wooden panels on top of them in one of the closets, and that it's shifted. And he kind of writes in this sort of, entry that he posted online that they look at the attic and it's shifted and he's completely freaked out. He thinks maybe like there's a homeless guy that moved up there, and they end up leaving. They invite a local woman that comes over and cleans the house with sage. And, the two of them still feel like really unnatural about it. He kind of leaves it open-ended, like, should I pop into the attic? Should I go investigate? We just move out? What do we do? And that's effectively how the story ends. If I was them, I would have just moved out. Like, there's no way. Like, you're telling me you're hearing meowing while you're living in your house, like near the woods, that's imitating your cat, trying to lure you downstairs? No. What the frick? Okay, so here's another story. That's this one is interesting. It was actually sent to me by a friend of mine. I was telling him I was going to just do an episode, sort of telling fun, scary stories about skinwalkers and wendigos, and he was like, "Oh, you gotta check this one out." So this is how it starts, and I'll be telling from his perspective. Growing up in Arizona, myths and legends are a part of life. Native traditions, mystic places, UFO abductions, and dozens of other stories of the unknown that I always found fascinating. And I grew up spending a lot of time wandering around the desert and the mountains, hunting, camping, so I felt very at home in the wilderness. One late spring, one of my many hiking adventures, I wandered off trail, and after several hours came upon a small group of like old mud adobe houses. A few people heard me coming and came out of the houses to investigate, and after apparently making the collective decision that I was not a threat, one of the elders, dressed in kind of like almost like an old style, like native clothing, came over to greet me. And the man spoke slowly and told me that I had wandered onto a reservation, specifically a Navajo reservation. And he asked me if I was lost or if I needed help. And when I told him that no, I was not lost, but, intentionally I was walking around, he chuckled and invited me in to, have a bite of food with his family. Over the next several hours were one of the great experiences of my life. The whole thing was like being thrown back in time. Literally, I was just there, and while we ate and talked, others from the surrounding houses began coming over to join us, and I got the feeling that they didn't get many outside visitors. We shared stories for hours about life, family, their history in the area, and time spent in the wild. And the longer we talked, the more they opened up and the more interesting the elders' stories got. Throughout the time, there was one man who never spoke. He just sat outside of the circle listening and watching me. At one point, I told them I did what I called my walkabouts every year around September, where I would go out by myself in the wilderness for 2 or 4 weeks at a time. And this got the attention of the one silent old man. When I finished, he came over to the circle around the fire, sat directly on the ground in front of me, and asked me to join him on the ground. He told me that years ago, he used to do the same thing. And he went on to tell me about the canyon he went to. He described it as dangerous and, for lack of a better word, kind of magical. And that I would see the world differently if I came back. If? It's kind of a weird thing to say. I mean, it must be for a dramatic effect. But regardless, when he finished, he invited me over to his home. The house was smaller, and through an open door in the back room, I could see that it was filled with various sort of pelts and, coyotes and different wolf skins. And he walked over and he closed the door, then picked up and handed me an old map that had some written directions that seemed like, he had been holding on to them for a very long time. And he just walked away back into that room and closed the door behind him. It was late, and one of the families had invited me to stay the night, which I gladly did. The next morning, as I was preparing to leave, one of the old women came over to me with something in her hands. She handed me a talisman and simply said, "Dip your bullets in the white ash at the hottest part of the fire," then just walked away. September came, and as I packed for my walkabout, I saw the talisman in a drawer, and something felt right about taking it with me. After a beautiful drive, I was very happy to find the Forest Service road marked on the old map. The entrance to the area was remote and overgrown and tough to get to, even in my Jeep, and took me much longer to get to than expected. So I decided to make camp and started hiking the next morning. After a few hours on a trail that looked like it had been completely forgotten, I came to a stream. And the entrance to the secret valley, sort of, that had been written on this old map. It was a narrow crack in the tall cliffs with about 4 feet of water running gently through, but too narrow for a kayak or a canoe. So I hoisted my gear over my head and began sort of wading sideways through the chest-deep water. The crack in the cliff seemed to go on forever, but after almost 2 hours, I came to a place where it opened up into a small lake in an incredible valley surrounded by tall rock faces. This may have been the most remote place that I had ever been, in the sense that there was no sign that people had ever even been there. I mean, I go camping a lot. There was no trash, no bullet casings, not even like ash from a campfire. My first night there was the quietest night I had ever spent in the wild. No birds, no frogs, not even a cricket. But it didn't feel like I was alone there. In the morning after breakfast, I headed out on my first exploratory hike to sort of see where my new home was for the next couple of weeks. And after being stalked by a mountain lion on a hike about 10 years ago, I made a point of now bringing a pistol with me when I'm out in the wilderness hiking because I don't want to deal with that shit anymore. After some looking around, I found a narrow path that appeared to be a game trail that led up the side of one of the cliffs and toward what looked like caves from the canyon floor. I made my way up to them and came upon an entrance that was much larger than it appeared from below. I made some noise to alert any possible animals that was there and made my way inside. The cave was an expansive single chamber that went back a few hundred feet, and as I walked, I inspected as much as I could see with my light, but there was no tracks of any kind in the dirt besides mine, so I decided I was alone in there and pushed on towards, the rear of the cave. As I came around the last bend in the cave and approached the end, my headlamp panned across a large sort of pile of bones. Some were animal, but some kind of looked human-ish, and some were extremely old looking. A small candle sitting on a natural shelf was there as well. And this is the first thing that scared me in as long as I can remember. I mean, I'm trying to focus my wits and remember that there's no other tracks into the cave, and I figured this all must have been from a long time ago. Maybe it was even native, who knows. I was still a little uneasy as I exited the cave, and I was ready to get back to my camp, and as I came out into the light about 75 feet away, there was the biggest wolf I had ever seen, looking like it was coming down from standing on its hind legs. It had dropped onto all fours on a rock and just began staring at me, not growling or baring its teeth, just staring. I pulled my .45 and fired 2 shots off to the side to scare it away, but it didn't even flinch. Not only have I never seen a wolf in this part of northern Arizona, but I've never even seen a wild animal that did not flinch at the sound of a gunshot. We both stood there staring at each other for a moment, but felt like forever. I turned and set my backpack down to grab my binoculars and get a closer look, but when I turned back, the wolf was gone. I made my way cautiously down the path back towards my camp and sort of feeling uneasy. Look, I've encountered wolves before, and usually it's not the one wolf you can see that should worry you, it's the ones you can't see. So I was extra cautious for the return trip. Back at camp, I made sure my gun was fully loaded and got my recurve bow strung just in case the wolves came back. I've seen plenty of predatory animals on my adventure. It's a part of being in the wilderness. This is a part of what I do. So I wasn't too worried, just preparing myself the best I could and went back over to the lake to go fishing. Within 20 minutes, I caught 2 of the biggest trout I'd ever caught. Feeling great. I decided to stop fishing for the day and just to take a swim. Back at the camp, I made a fire, cleaned my trout, and made dinner while the sun went down. As soon as the sun went down, all of the life in the canyon once again seemed to go completely silent. As I put out my fire and prepared for bed, I noticed that there was a small flicker of light coming from the area where the cave I had explored earlier up on the cliffside, which didn't make any sense. It was a moonless night. The stars didn't reflect that way. It couldn't have been the candles that I had seen because the candles were far too old and would not have burned as brightly as this flame that I'm looking at right now. I decided to keep my gun close and try to get some sleep. I would investigate the cave again the next day. When I awoke at sunrise, there was a haze along the ground throughout the whole canyon floor, but as the sun rose, it disappeared quickly and the area kind of came back to life. Once again, it was beautiful. I made my breakfast, gathered my gun and my bow, and headed back towards the cave. When I reached the entrance, I saw there were still no tracks besides mine around the entrance and decided to push up the hill a little further. Just a little further up, I came upon the entrance to another cave, much smaller than the first one. There was a small flat landing with large, heavily twisted juniper trees that, to my absolute surprise, had many small objects hanging from thin, old-looking ropes tied to the branches. There were bones, but they were also old things definitely made by humans and looked like they were old, like Native American artifacts. Thinking I may have found the spot where the old man I met on the reservation had stayed when he was there decades ago, I decided to go into the cave. This cave was much different from the first one. Just a few feet in, I noticed that the walls were covered with what looked like ceremonial cave paintings. And as I pushed farther back, the cave got dramatically colder, much colder than it should have been. And the walls were completely covered with paintings the entire way. It was just absolutely fascinating. When I reached the back of the cave, I was not prepared at all for what I saw. There was what looked like an old altar, is sort of the best way to describe it from, back when I used to go to church. And it was made of wood and kind of like bones, I guess. I couldn't tell if they were animal or not. As I looked around, I saw that a little before the back of the cave, there was another shaft in the ceiling that went straight up. And on a ledge about 25 feet up sat a small figure of what appeared to be a woman. She was small and pale with her face painted white and wearing something like a crown made of woven branches with 2 small antlers in the front. I stopped and stared for a few minutes, and the figure did not move, so I assumed that maybe it was mummified remains from a long time ago or something. Not wanting to disturb a burial site, I decided to walk back out of the cave, and I began to walk. As I started to walk, I heard what sounded like a faint voice, but it wasn't in English. It was like almost like an unknown, like ancient kind of language thing. That's the only way I can describe it. I instinctively looked back up towards the figure, but the figure was gone. I was immediately terrified, and I ran from the cave as fast as I could, but my headlamp started to flicker and it ultimately died. I made my way out, feeling along the walls to find my way, and the whole way I felt like there was something directly behind me. When I saw the first light from the cave entrance, I began to sprint towards it, just absolutely elated, but before I made it out, I looked back, and there was nothing. So I slowed down. But I could still hear the faint voice, and the volume never changed. When I got outside, All the bones and artifacts hanging from the tree were gone. I ran down the path as fast as I could, headed back to the campsite by the lake. Just as I reached the floor of the canyon, I noticed the large wolf at the tree line to my left, but this time it stayed standing upright on its hind legs. I stopped running, hoping not to initiate its predatory response to chase me, and again, it just stood there, staring at me. I reached my campsite safely and immediately began packing up, but it was too late in the day to make it out before dark. I did not want to make the hike out at night with all that was going on. I moved my tent so it was, backed up to the canyon wall by the crack on the cliffside so I don't have to worry about anything sneaking up behind me. I built my fire much larger and knew I wasn't going to get any sleep that night. Just as the sun was going down, I began to hear noises coming from the trees, and I felt like it sounds silly, but I felt like I was being hunted. Finally, in the last light of the day, I saw the wolf walking around by where the path led out of the trees, and it began to slowly walk towards me. I felt the dread go through my entire body, and this time I drew my gun and fired towards the creature, fully intending to hit it. And while I saw a couple hit the dirt around it, several bullets did hit it. Several rounds from a .45 will at least slow down anything I've ever encountered in my entire life, but this giant wolf just kept walking towards me like nothing had fucking happened. I continued to fire at it until the inevitable click of my empty magazine. I reached down and fumbled in my backpack looking for another magazine to reload, and as I lifted it, the talisman the old woman had given me fell onto the ground. I picked it up and put it around my neck and immediately remembered what she had told me. Dip your bullets in the white ash. I looked around and I didn't see my backup magazine, so I grabbed my bow and I pulled an arrow that was tipped with a hunting broadhead and dipped it into the white ashes. I drew it and I fired. I hit the creature just in front of its right hip, and it let out a noise somewhere between like a growl and, to be honest with you, it sounded more like a person screaming, and it just made my blood curdle. I can hear the noise in my head to this day. I have nightmares to this day of that exact sound. It immediately turned and ran back into the trees, and in the flicker of the fire, I saw the small woman with the antler crown standing there, waiting for it. They both retreated into the trees, and for the rest of the night, I could hear the same faint voice that I had heard in the cave. I spent the night outside of my tent, as awake as I had ever been, but no longer afraid, and at dawn, I finished packing up so I could get out of that canyon. The next spring, I went back to the small group of houses on the Navajo reservation I had found the years before. I was wearing the talisman as a necklace, and the first person to greet me was the woman who had given it to me, and she ran up to me and gave me a big hug. "You heard me," was all she said. I asked the group about the man who had given me the map, as I was almost desperate to talk to him about this weird, disturbing experience that I had so I could compare it to his own. They told me that he had disappeared shortly after I had visited them for the first time and that he'd not been back. Strangely, when I tried to tell them what had happened to me, no one would let me tell the story. The oldest man there who sat on the corner just kept on mumbling the words, "Ye Naldushi." We all once again sat and shared other stories of life and a meal. But before I left the next morning, I found the old woman who had given me the talisman and offered it back to her. She smiled and told me that I had a good heart, then just closed my hands around it, telling me to keep it, to watch over me on my next walkabout. I went back to that small village on the reservation several times over the next 10 years or so until I moved to Oregon, but they never let me tell them what happened. I never went back to the canyon, and while curiosity sometimes gets the best of me, I don't think I ever will. I mean, this kind of goes back to the native tradition that many natives don't talk about these stories. They feel like by talking about it, you give energy to, whatever the being is. Is a story that was posted to a subreddit written by this guy, Z Chopped, and ZCHAUPT. It's just a great story. I mean, whether that was real or not, it's kind of terrifying. Just don't go in the woods. How about that? Just don't go. Like that's kind of that's. I like who I don't know if I'm. I guess some people are like this. If I'm walking in the woods and I see some shit that's weird, I'm not going to go in. If I see a cave that has a bunch of drawings on it, I'm going to peek around, and then I'm not going all the way to the back. Especially if I find like a native burial ground, I'm alone. I'm not going all the way back. That is so crazy, especially just in a cave in general. I don't know. That's just too much for me. So, and also like if I see a wolf, I guess, I don't know. I'm also, look, I love to camp. I'm going out. I like to go. I'm not going alone. I'm also not going to go to where I can't just drive out on a moment's notice. Oh, I've rolled my ankle. I need to go to the hospital. Like, I don't know. This is just, that's too much for me. I'm not doing all that. Okay. I'm not that guy. But again, going back to the native stories, you don't talk about these things. You don't want to give them credence. Again, by speaking, you're bringing life into the spirit itself. And this is kind of is a tradition that actually exists in a lot of religions, where by just sort of invoking the name of demons or dark spirits, you're able to, you invite them into your life. And that is how, these things sort of make a presence in people's lives. And that by knowing the names of things, you're actually able to invoke them, which is why, pagan and sort of occultist type people try to learn the names of demons to try to conjure them in order to get powers, yada, yada. Again, this happens in Christianity. This is discussed in a lot of religions. It exists in these native religions too. Again, maybe different people have, similar stories. Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe these dark forces are the same dark forces that exist across, every religion, and they're all just sort of invoking the same thing. And there you have it, folks. Those are all of our scary stories that we're reading today. It's just fun. It's just kind of fun just to get spooked, I mean, I was getting spooked. I was reading a bunch of these last night. And looking at some of the videos are just like, fuck that, dude. That shit freaks me out. But it's just sort of fun, especially around Halloween time. Just get spooked. Just get a little scary. I don't know. Have y'all ever seen a Skinwalker? You ever seen a Wendigo? Again, I've never really seen anything supernatural in my lifetime, despite being an ardent believer in the supernatural. I'm like convinced that like there's still demons out there, but I've never seen one. I've never experienced one. Praise God. I don't want to. But I'm just saying, if you've ever seen one, if you've ever experienced one, let me know. Comment below, whatever your story is. We're going to do another episode, and I would love to read real stories from the community, people that have actually, actual campers that have actual experience with this kind of stuff. Again, any type of ghost story, demon story, something weird, spooky, unexplainable that you don't really know the answer to. Again, you don't have to say what it is or what you think it is. Just put it out there. Leave it open-ended. That's what I like to do. Comment them below. And if it's cool with you, next episode, I'll read them and we can discuss further. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of Camp.